Welcome to this video celebration of the KnG's Nordic Ski Club's 2009 and 2010 cross-country ski seasons. If you don't already know us, we're one of the most active cross-country ski touring clubs in the eastern United States. Based in the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area, we are devoted to providing opportunities for cross-country skiing, promoting safe skiing practices, and encouraging the general enjoyment of the outdoors. With a membership of only about 120, we successfully ran 26 multi-day ski trips during those two seasons, providing the opportunity for many hundreds of ski days for our members. This is a photographic compendium of those two seasons of skiing. The photos were chosen from among the 7,000 plus photos and videos taken by our members and collected during those trips. I hope you enjoy the show and that you'll join us on future ski trips.
Where in the world are the KnG's?
With years of experience, club members know where to find snow, and this location is certainly one of the most reliable. While many of us love skiing ungroomed trails in the woods, we all at least occasionally enjoy a groomed trail system. This particular one was operated for many years by a single individual. With about 10 miles of trails, including some pretty special hills, there is plenty of territory to occupy a skier for the day. The retail shop on the premises features one of the best selections of cross-country gear in the Northeast, at prices calculated to please. I'll finish giving the location away by saying that this place claims more snow than any other area east of the Mississippi. Located on top of the Tug Hill Plateau, Osceola Tug Hill Cross Country Ski Center averages about 25 feet of snow per year. And we traditionally ski here during our trips to Pulaski, New York. The 1880 House, a monster Victorian B&B, is our home away from home in Pulaski, New York. Situated just off Interstate 81, between the eastern tip of Lake Ontario and the western edge of Tug Hill, it is a perfect ski destination. Winona State Forest offers a huge network of ski trails that are free for the public to use. Most of the trails are groomed and offer many miles of skiing from multiple trailheads. There are still a few ungroomed trails though, and one of them is my personal favorite. Aptly named Bill's Belly, it offers some challenging hills, unbridged stream crossings, and lovely scenery. Always a different experience, it's a fun exercise that makes you grin each time you make it to the end. Salmon Hills is a commercial ski area on the edge of the Salmon Reservoir. Unfortunately, it was closed this year. Here's hoping that it will manage to reopen in the future. Chateauguay State Forest is a small, wooded area just a couple of miles from end to end. However, it hosts some of the most delightful ungroomed trails in the area. Riddled with old stone walls that once bordered long-abandoned farm fields, it offers mostly easy skiing and is one of our favorite half-day skis. Selkirk Shores State Park is right on the shores of Lake Ontario. Lighthouses and lakefronts make for unique skiing scenery. Barnes Corners, in the Tug Hill State Forest on the northern edge of Tug Hill, has a wonderful set of trails. The southern half of the trail system is now groomed and offers both easy and challenging trails through a forest of mixed hardwoods and conifers. The trails in the northern half of the system are not groomed. However, this is no reason to avoid them, as they border the rim of the spectacular Inman Gulf Canyon. Pulaski is just a super ski destination.
Where in the world are the kicking gliders?
Making a one-way trip on a ski trail usually involves significant planning and coordination. It would be really nice if your host offered to help with that, especially if they'd agree to do the driving. Oh, and can we just add that our trail of choice should also be groomed? Of course it's nice when the one-way is mostly the down-the-hill way, and when it's scenic. And of course it simply must include a little village along the way where you can stop for lunch. There simply aren't too many trails that fulfill all those requirements. But one that does is the 12-mile trail that connects Highland Lodge to Craftsbury Outdoor Center and that runs through Craftsbury Village. Craftsbury Outdoor Center is traditionally our first trip of the season and is, by far, our most popular trip. It's an all-inclusive deal, including meals and ski passes. The Craftsbury trails make for some great skiing. They cover some lovely countryside and secluded woods, and include enough challenges to be interesting to all skiers. Après-ski activities usually start sitting on the floor in the upstairs dormitory hallway. After dinner, social activities usually move to the downstairs lounge. Craftsbury Ski Center was modernized a couple years ago. We've got a now 3-year-old tradition of taking a short night ski after dinner on New Year's Eve. Of course, the big tradition is Craftsbury's New Year's Eve celebration. Activities usually begin in our rooms, eventually spilling over into the dining hall. They finally conclude around the bonfire with champagne at midnight. Afterwards, we toss whole Christmas trees onto the fire. Ski privileges at Highland Lodge, a few miles away, are included with our ski pass. Situated on higher ground, there are some especially lovely vistas. When we took up the sport of cross-country skiing, most of us probably regarded it as relatively easy, low-risk activity. It probably wasn't too long, however, before we encountered our first hills. Unless we're on a rail trail, we have to at least occasionally climb one. It's easy to remember, for instance, the 1,000-foot-high, 2-mile-long climb a bunch of us did at Jackson Cross Country Ski Center in New Hampshire last year. Technically, it was pretty easy, comprising a fairly steady grade up well-groomed trails. However, it was unrelenting, and we were all pretty tired by the time we got to the top. Then there was this year's ski on the short section of the Catamount Trail that traverses Vermont's Elmore State Park. This 700-foot climb was spread over about 3 miles, a third less climbing and only half as steep as the one at Jackson XC. However, it was just a bit more technical. We actually considered turning back on this one-way ski, but persevered and got to our goal with no injuries and feeling pretty good about what we'd managed to do. But that's the big stuff. What about those short little climbs that comprise the majority of the more difficult hills we encounter? There are a few techniques you can use to get to the top. For instance, you may be able to get to the top using momentum and a simple herringbone, but that doesn't always work for everyone. Then you get into situations where the herringbone just doesn't cut it. That's when you resort to the sidestep technique. It will get you up nearly any hill, provided the trail is at least as wide as your skis are long. And then there are the times when all else fails. The elegant Braylock Inn in picturesque Casanova, New York, is where we stay these days when we want to ski the area southeast to Syracuse. Our main ski venue here is Highland Forest and Onondaga County Park. The recently constructed Skyline Lodge in the park serves as a hub for admission and gear rentals, as well as a place to relax over lunch or to just take a break from skiing. The park maintains more than 20 miles of enjoyable, single-track ski trails. Green Lakes State Park's outstanding features are its 2 glacial lakes surrounded by upland forest. We go there to take advantage of the 10 miles of trails that cross-country skiers can use. Chittenango Creek Trail is a short rail trail that begins right in Casanova and winds along the creek by the same name. Only a 5-mile round trip, it made for a fine way to finish off a pleasant weekend. Having once climbed a hill, you've earned the privilege of getting back down to the bottom. Sounds good, right? Well, descending, like climbing, can be a cinch, or it can be a challenge. In some cases, hills can be quite short, and the only special skill you need is a finely tuned sense of balance. On longer hills that are groomed, aren't too steep and are track set, you can just stay in the tracks and simply enjoy the view on the way down. Other times, the turns may be tight, the conditions a bit icy, or the hill steep and long. At those times, you may be safer to step out of the tracks so you're in a position to use alternate techniques. The most common technique for reducing downhill speed, of course, is the good old snowplow. It's a must-have skill that most skiers are shown on their first day on skis. We often ski on ungroomed backcountry trails. The need to manage downhill situations doesn't change, of course, but the trail conditions can be much, much different. Some situations may call for what I simply call coping skills. For instance, you may find an obstacle halfway down a hill, like a fallen tree across the trail. Or there may be a sharp turn onto a bridge at the bottom of the hill. Go off the trail there and you don't end up in the woods, but down a bank and into the water. Coping skills are anything you have to do to descend safely, regardless of how good it looks or whether or not the technique is discussed in some book. Among the coping skills are things like sidestepping or performing a series of traverses when there's room. Another technique is the so-called ski pole drag. Criticized as dangerous to critical portions of the anatomy, it's a good idea to take your hands out of the straps so you can jettison the poles if necessary. And when there seems no other choice, the final coping skill is to simply walk down the hill.
Where in the world are the kicking gliders?
Skiing to, or in this case around, a lake seems to be a popular theme for favorite trails of the kick and gliders. Ungroomed, this trail is popular with skiers and snowshoers alike, so even if we have to break trail, it's usually not too deep. We refer to this sort of a trail as a lollipop, with an in-and-out trail that leads skiers into a loop trail. Technically, it's an easy 6-mile ski that almost all of our members can do with confidence. Not every lake is fed by a waterfall, or should we say icefall at this time of year. Oh, I know. Regardless of the time of year, the fall can still be properly referred to as a cascade. Well, I certainly gave this one away. It's the not-to-be-missed Cascade Lake Loop, just outside of Inlet, New York. Inlet, New York, and the condos at Rocky Point on Fourth Lake have been a staple of our club's ski schedule for quite a while now. Just 2 miles from the condos, the town maintains an extensive, free ski trail system at Fern Park. The trail system wraps up and around a small peak along the south side of the lake. Many of the park's trails are groomed, though many others are not. Though skiers generally regard the park as a half-day ski, there is plenty to occupy the adventurous skier for much longer. Last year we decided to explore a couple of area trails that we'd never skied before or hadn't done for years. Among those was an old snowmobile trail that joined with Old Uncas Road near 7th Lake. Unfortunately, the trail hadn't been maintained for years, and the going got pretty dicey for a while. After bushwhacking the last mile or so, and making a few interesting stream crossings, we finally found the old road, and I had a nice ski back toward our cars. Another new-to-us trail was the one to Chub Lake. This one began as a road for about half a mile. Then it became a lovely but increasingly challenging trail. Everyone had a good time, but not everyone made it to the outlet stream from Chub Lake. This year's new trail was one that went around the lake at the restored Adirondack Break Camp called Sagamore. The 4-mile loop was pretty well maintained and made for an enjoyable ski. The Moss Lake Loop begins just down the road from the Cascade Lake Trail trailhead. You don't really get to see much of the lake from the trail that loops around it. But if you take the spur trail to Bub Lake, you get a real pretty view of that one. The Big Otter Lake Truck Trail is an old favorite. The trail leads to Big Otter Lake, of course, but the 16-mile in-and-out round trip is more than we're usually up for. Instead, we generally turn around at the 5-mile mark. A big treat on the way back out is the gentle 1-mile-long descent toward the trailhead. Remember that frozen waterfall at Cascade Lake? This year, conditions were such that it was possible to climb it, and Bart Richwine took the dare. The climb was cool. The question was how to get back down. If you've never fallen, then you just ain't tried nothing worth doing on skis. It's easy, really. You can trust me on that. And you can trust the photographic evidence that follows. Probably the most spectacular falls are the ones that happen going downhill. There is nothing to be embarrassed about when you fall going down a hill. It's an honorable result after an attempt to demonstrate just how good a skier you are. Of course, you can also fall when you're going uphill. The falls are less spectacular, and the getting up is easier. But how about when you're just standing around? It happens more often than you might think, and it is something to be embarrassed about. Then there are the situations that are rare for cross-country skiers, like getting off the ski lift at Mount Mansfield. The falling part is easy. It's the getting up part that can be tough. And we try not to make a big deal of the difficulties people sometimes have when they're trying to extricate themselves from a deep snowfall. We just surreptitiously take as many embarrassing photos and videos as we can to share with our fellow skiers. We make light of these falls, but sometimes they're no laughing matter, as happened with Fred Richter at Val David last year. He was heading down an ungroomed black diamond at Parc du Frêne when he fell. With some help, Fred managed to return to the ski center, where we loaded him into the car and returned to Parker's Lodge for treatment with an ace bandage and ice packs. The following day, he still had too much pain to ski, so he made himself useful around the lodge. Unfortunately, upon returning home, the ankle was found to be badly broken and needed a cast. Finally, we have this up and down sequence to share from this year's trip to Yellowstone National Park. It demonstrates the use of traverses to ascend a steep, open snowfield. And, of course, the most proper of descent techniques.
Where in the world are the kicking gliders?
Let's see. A 60-acre marsh, 5 ponds, several brooks and swamps. Sound like an appealing ski venue? Maybe it would sound better if we added in a smattering of glacial and geological features, varied forest types, and a couple of scenic vistas from adjacent mountains. Even better, let's pepper it with 10 miles of trails designed for cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. Finally, we'll note that there's a beautiful large building with nature displays, comfortable furniture, and lovely views through huge windows. It's a place where we often eat lunch or just take a break. And, to top it off, it's free! What is this little treasure? It's the Visitor Interpretive Center, better known as the VIC, at Paul Smith's, New York. The VIC is owned by the New York State Adirondack Park Agency and is operated by the Adirondack Park Institute, a not-for-profit corporation. And we drive there to ski from our digs in Lake Placid, New York. For the Lake Placid trip, we like to stay right in the town, convenient to local attractions and to shopping. Fortunately, the town has a good inventory of large, comfortable houses available for rent. The ski trail system at the Olympic Sports Complex at Mount von Hovenberg is an excellent place to get started. Offering days' worth of skiing pleasure, you can opt for the easier trails on the west side of the entrance road, or for the steeper stuff of the Porter Mountain side of the system. Don't forget to stop at the Ice Festival in Saranac Lake that is usually going on President's Day weekend while we're there. Connery Pond is an easy day's ski on an old road that passes Connery Pond on its way to a landing on Lake Placid itself. For a little more adventure, you can ski back to a shelter on the side trail that eventually climbs to the top of Whiteface Mountain. The piece de resistance of Lake Placid day trip skiing, for my money, is the High Peaks Area Trail that climbs up to Avalanche Lake. The first part, a road into Marcy Dam, is easy if uninspiring. From there, the next couple of miles is lovely, but the climb to the pass itself is debilitating. However, the final mile to the lake is a blast if a bit challenging, and the lake itself is an awesome sight. Reason enough to visit Lake Placid. Dinner, anyone? According to many kick-and gliders, first among the food groups is a good beer. It shouldn't surprise anyone that it shows up après-ski, but it's a bit less common on the trail. We prepare our own meals on most of our trips. That's the case, for instance, when we rent houses or condos in places like Inlet, Lake Placid, and Yellowstone. We encounter a variety of challenges like unfamiliar kitchens, or like preparing a new-to-us recipe for up to 18 people in the 2-hour time frame allotted after a day's skiing. It all seems to work out though, and it's been said that no one's ever lost a pound of body mass on a kick-and-glider ski trip. Usually it's smiles all around by the end of the evening. On other trips like Craftsbury and Pioneer Lodge, our hosts take care of the details. Craftsbury has a great cafeteria serving 3 tasty, healthful squares each day. This past season, they even treated us to pizza one afternoon. They baked it in a brand new outdoor brick oven that they had built just last summer. Pioneer Lodge, on the other hand, serves up family-style, home-cooked meals that are just like Grandma's. Served around Diane's enormous dining room table, mealtime makes for an excellent social gathering. Here we see Fred indulging in one of his favorite pastimes.
Fred going light on the gravy, he says.
Do you want to put...
Fred does like his potatoes, without a doubt.
He's gonna take it movies.
Oh yeah.
Where in the world are the kick-and gliders?
While the extensive and scenic trail system in this location offers plenty of interest for us slowpokes, the wide, well-groomed trails are also a skater's paradise. As with some other ski centers located adjacent to downhill areas, skinny ski devotees are permitted to use one of the lifts so they can ski down an access road. The first-class ski center serves as an elegant clubhouse for golfers during the summer. A short trail connects this trail system to the grounds of the Appalachian Mountain Club's newest lodge. An historic post-World War II accord was signed on the premises of a famous Grand Hotel at this location. This one's easy, and you must have it by now. It's Bretton Woods, about 30 miles from North Conway, on the shoulders of Mount Washington. In North Conway, New Hampshire, we stay at Stonehurst Manor. While the manor itself offers fine dining and lovely rooms, that's not the attraction to kick-and gliders. Rather, it is the great 3-bedroom condos offering excellent accommodations at fire sale prices that are the well-kept secret of North Conway. Skiers can actually ski out the door onto the Intervale Trails, a network of groomed trails maintained by the Mount Washington Valley Ski Touring and Snowshoe Foundation. The trails connect the village of North Conway to nearby Intervale and Kearsarge. It's a fairly small system, but offers pleasant skiing and the opportunity to ski downtown for lunch or shopping in the village. One of the closest and most prominent commercial ski areas is Jackson XC. The system is owned and operated by the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation, a community-based, not-for-profit organization chartered to maintain trails in and around the village of Jackson. The foundation maintains 148 kilometers of trails that they claim to be the finest cross-country ski trails in the eastern United States. We won't argue with the claim, but they do have some competition in the area. An example is the trail system at Bretton Woods that we've already covered. Great Glen offers skiing at the base of Mount Washington, as well as the opportunity to ride a snow coach partway up the Mount Washington Auto Road. It's not an extensive trail system, but it is beautifully maintained and offers, like many of the big ski operations here, an excellent ski center. At the other end of the scale is Bear Notch. Located in nearby Bartlett, it is a low-budget, homespun-looking affair. But don't let the folksy digs fool you. Bear Notch is reportedly favored by the locals, and we concur with the locals. They do a great job grooming and have a trail system that offers lots of fun, with relatively narrow trails that snake through wooded hillsides and along the lovely Sawyers River. This year we decided to take advantage of one of the many trails on public lands in the region. The Zealand Trail parallels the river and the road by the same name toward a like-named mountain pass and an AMC hut named, well, you can guess. It's a rugged trail and provided lots of challenges for the hardy souls among our group who skied it. Unfortunately, it got too late to ski back down, and we hoofed it back down the parallel road. We just couldn't resist one more picture as we passed the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods on our way back to town. There are lots of tales about crossing unbridged streams on backcountry trails. Some are really easy, and you can simply ski across them. Others require a little more care. It's helpful when the width of the stream isn't too much larger than your inseam measurement. Sometimes it helps to get inventive, like first throwing your skis across and then using your poles to do a vault. Once in a while you find a tougher one, like this example on the old Uncas Road last year. It was just too wide to jump. Searching both upstream and downstream, the best we could do was a fallen tree. So, "Ride 'em cowboy" was our motto, as we each in turn shimmied our way across. The good news? No wet feet, no wet gear. The bad news? We'll just leave that to your imagination.
Where in the world are the kicking gliders?
We always enjoy skiing around lakes, and this place has a couple of them, nestled in a lovely valley among several small mountains. Immaculately groomed single-track trails are a hallmark of this place. It seems a bit off, skiing among snow-covered campers in the middle of winter. It's a pay-to-play location that features a modern ski center and a hospitable staff. A solitary warming hut features free hot chocolate. Unique in our experience are the signs used here that characterize the downhills by degree. The destination is Parc de Camper, just outside St. Agathe in the Laurentian Mountains. It's one of many delightful area ski centers. Parker's Lodge, somewhere on the shabby side of Chick, has been our lodging of choice for the past few years for our trip to Val David in Quebec's Laurentians Mountains. Canadian ski areas are known for their spectacular grooming, and this area is no exception. Val David, in a joint effort with neighboring Val Marin, offers Parc du Frêne for our skiing pleasure. Blessed with two ski centers, Chalet d'Aqueuet in Val David and Far Hills Inn in Val Marin, Parc du Frêne offers tons of trails at all levels of difficulty. And with two ski centers, you can begin at one, ski to the other where you take time out for lunch, and then choose another route to return to where you began the day. Altogether quite civilized, well, except for those ungroomed backcountry trails that present certain hazards. While in Val David, and interested in some more relaxed skiing opportunities, you might try the Petite Train du Nord. This rail trail stretches for some 200 kilometers and passes right through downtown Val David. At least in this area, the trail offers very good grooming and some lovely scenery. Tremblant is the name used for a mountain, a town, a ski center, and a national park. The Diable area of the park by that name is where we ski. There are picturesque, easy trails and picturesque, intermediate trails. Our group splits up, of course, according to our tastes in skiing. My favorite bit at Diable is the A5 trail, with its 1 mile fast descent back to the ski center. This year, a few of us decided to try a new-to-us ski area in St. Adolphe de Howard. We were looking for some challenging skiing with a backcountry flavor. As expected, we were well rewarded with some challenging, ungroomed backcountry trails. But we were really surprised when, while making our way back to the ski center, we encountered what was the steepest, most challenging downhill that any of us had ever experienced. Finally, there is Forêt Aurore. This modest-appearing provincial park hosts a lovely set of trails, a system of 5 huts, and even offers to transport your gear to the huts for overnight stays. The main artery is a groomed summertime road. From this artery, a system of side trails and loops branch off and go around a couple of lakes and through some beautiful woods. And a few of those side trails, all marked with appropriate warnings of course, offer some thrilling downhills back toward the parking lot. Smiles. They make us smile in turn. Obsessed with sliding, we find the means to do so whenever we can. The town of Bennington, Vermont seemed obsessed with decorating their moose statues. Some people just have to stack things. Big skis, big poles. Celebrities love posing with them or as them. Looks like you got new boots. This headgear saw lots of use. It's been known to change personalities. Isn't there a sign somewhere that says you're not supposed to feed the animals? A few of us just can't resist taking pictures of cats. Yellowstone was the big trip for 2010. Flying into Bozeman, Montana, the group headed to their horse farm and chalet by the river near Gardner, just outside the northwest entrance to the park. On day one, a couple of folks took the interpretive, day-long tour via snow coach to visit the Old Faithful geyser area. Others, after checking out tours for the week, headed for the hot spring terraces near the Mammoth Visitor Center. In winter, travel inside the park is restricted to snow coaches or snowcats in most areas. There are several generations of these vehicles evident in the park. The week was spent skiing on a large variety of trails, some groomed and some not. Most of the time the group skied on their own, but on other occasions they used guides for interpretation and to get access to special areas. Wildlife was everywhere in the park, and the views were often magnificent. The Tower Falls area, in the northeast corner of the park, features a spectacular waterfall on the creek by the same name. Wildlife spotters, mainly looking for wolves, were to be seen in many areas. When they didn't spot wolves, they were often watching other species. A stop for lunch in Cook City, outside the northeast entrance, featured a glimpse into local politics. Touring Yellowstone Canyon provided views from Artists Point and led to the river's upper falls. High country on the shoulders of Mount Washburn made for some spectacular views. Peaceful Lamar Valley is home to many species of wildlife. That day's tour also brought the group through a recent forest fire burn area. A late afternoon foray into Chico Springs made for a welcome break from skiing. One day, the group took a tour by the Yellowstone Association. Dave was fascinated by elk antlers discovered along the trail and couldn't resist trying them on. After passing lots of wildlife along the trail, the group arrived at the acclimation enclosure used when wolves were reintroduced into the park. Later, people looking at wolves through spotting scopes allowed our folks to take a look as well. The boiling river is aptly named. You have to be careful not to get scalded when taking a dip, even in the middle of winter. For the benefit and enjoyment of the people, reads the inscription. Indeed.
You make me smile like the sun, fall out of bed, sing like a bird, dizzy in my head, spin like a record, crazy on a Sunday night. You make me dance like a fool, forget how to breathe, shine like gold, buzz like a bee. Just the thought of you can drive me wild. Oh, you make me smile. Even when you're gone, somehow you come along just like a flower poking through the sidewalk crack. And just like that, you steal away the rain. And just like that, you make me smile.